Okay, welcome back to Game Programming with Unity, the final section. So what I'm going to talk to you about now, we've already gone through this build setting dialog box here, just kind of what all these things mean. And like I said, there's a lot of settings here. These target platforms, web player, PC, Mac, and Linux standalone, and iOS. Those are the ones we're really going to focus on right now. All right, now what I want to show you is over here is our quality settings and our player settings. So I'm clicking right here on our player settings. And you can see over here we have all of the settings for the different players. Let's just look at our first three. Now, a lot of these are specific to the targeted platform. So if I'm going to go to the web player here, and this is what this denotes here, this little web world thing, we can change our resolution, right? So this is the resolution it's going to come out at if we're using the web player. And we can change the icon, let's go to our other settings here. There's no icon or splash image, obviously, for a web player. So now we have things with our rendering path. This is the lighting schematic, and you can see as I change it, you can watch it in this viewport here, change a little bit. Forward is the most sophisticated one. It's also a little more costly, so you can see that the quality is much better with forward. We really want to leave it there unless we have a reason not to. The color space, gamma and linear. Gamma corrects for the way our eyes read brightness levels, so you kind of want to leave gamma on. Some of these other things, really, I don't need to worry about this stuff so much. It's mostly real specific aspects of streamlining and efficiency and crunching the data down, compressing stuff. And streaming here, we haven't really gotten into streaming, but streaming allows you to preload levels and things while other levels are being played. Now let's go to our standalone here. So these resolution and presentation configurations are what allow you to really fine-tune the output of the game, right? And these are things you're just going to have to spend some time working with, spend some time understanding what you are going to get in the end, once you build that game, and what all of the parameters are. Now here, the icons, we're allowed to create an icon for the game, which is cool because you want your own icon. So you can drag and drop these here. You can create any icon you want for the game. And we have some of the other settings, which are just basically all of our forward lighting and gamma and stuff. That's pretty much the rendering options are going to be there for every platform. Now for the iOS, we have a whole lot of other stuff, right? We've got all this scripting backend changes. These are different ways to interpolate the scripts that we use in C# to the iOS language, which is Objective-C. And you've got a lot of these aspects of it, these accelerometer frequencies, if you're using that. You've got all kinds of stuff here that you can edit and import and change and adjust for our efficiency. Remember, when we go out to the iOS, it's going to have a lot less capability than a desktop system. So a lot of times, if the game runs too slow, you're going to have to come in here and really work on this optimization. Get rid of all the stuff in here that you don't need. Now, these are really the only three player settings I'm going to go over here. It's just the web, our standalone, and the iOS. Now, the WebGL stuff has very similar things. It's fairly new. Haven't done a lot of stuff with WebGL, but the potential there is really awesome that you don't have to have it plug in to read it. All right, so let's check over here under our quality settings. Now, this is something that you need to pay some attention to. Shadow distance. Okay, so the quality settings, let me just run down what's going on here. All right, there are different quality settings that are default for the different types of output. So here we have web, we have standalone, and we have iOS. iOS is on simple. Why? Because, yeah, that's the iOS. I didn't know if it was globally mobile. All right, so the simple here, right, that's checked. We could come up and check fantastic, but don't forget the iOS is on simple, and this is our default resolution preset. It's on simple because these things, right, BlackBerry, Android, iPhone, have limited amounts of texture memory, limited video processing capability. So they're always going to be on something lower. And we can fine tune these. Let's just select our Fantastic profile. So these are our different profiles. In Fantastic, we have a pixel light count that's high. Our texture quality is full resolution. We can drop those down, right? So if I want an 8th resolution, let's check out simple. that's still on full resolution. We can cut that resolution down, and that would give us a lot more texture space. Anti-aliasing, the less anti-aliasing, the lower the quality, but the less overhead we have. All right, soft particles. Now, soft particles means that can the particles be semi-transparent and kind of gooey? We can leave that on. Generally speaking, for something that's on the simple, it turns that stuff off. Real-time reflection probes. We haven't gotten into real-time reflections. Don't worry about that too much. And then billboards facing the camera. This is for things like grass and textures, and oftentimes you'll need these billboards to face the textures, or the billboards to face the camera with the textures on them. All right, shadows. Now this is what I think is one of the most important things, is that do we allow hard and soft shadows? We can either have hard shadows only, right, and you can see that shadow there will change. We can turn off shadows completely, and if you look at our simple, generally speaking, that's either hard shadows only, or if we go to fast, we disable the shadows completely. Hard shadows are a little cheaper than soft shadows. Okay, now we can change our resolution of those shadows, right? Low resolution, that makes a huge difference. Dynamic lighting and shadows, big difference between low resolution shadows and high resolution shadows. So right here, we're trying to optimize for the best quality or for the fastest rendering. So we have to think about what device we're going out to. Right, shadow projection. These are different ways to fit the depth map shadows onto the ground. We're going to use stable fit for the most part. All right, shadow distance. Now this is something that really gets people, because at some point the shadows won't show up depending on the distance from the camera. There we go. Yeah, you see how as I go further and further away, the shadow changes. All right, so if my shadow distance, now right now we're pretty big. There we go. You see how that shadow distance is changing? A lot of times when you're in a smaller world and your shadow distance from the camera is pretty far, you won't see shadows that are further away than a certain distance from that camera, and that's to save time in rendering. And this shadow distance is pretty low. Sometimes it gets pretty high, like 200. You need to be above that in order to see it. All right, so now let's just ignore the shadow cascades. This gets really into fine-tuning your shadow passes. So if I say no cascades, it'll be a really blurry shadow, and that saves me a lot of memory. You can see how much percentage those cascades are taking. 4 cascades is the default for fantastic. Let's just click on simple and see no cascades. So there's no cascades for those shadows at all. So if I choose no cascades, then it'll be fairly blurry. But then I can go to my hard shadows only. So these are kind of set up to be optimized to highest quality with fantastic or lowest quality with simple and fast. This blend weights, let's not worry about that. We haven't gotten as sophisticated as Bones yet. And some of these other things here, these are just little budgetary items that we can change. But the important thing to understand about this is the rendering is what's really important, especially the shadows, and how detailed the rendering, how the quality of the rendering is really going to change how fast this renders on any one system. And don't forget, you're distributing to a central point, and people are going to be running this game on multiple systems. And that's why these quality settings are so important, because it can look awesome on your home super gaming system, and then your grandmother tries to play it and she says, I couldn't play, it was too slow, and the whole thing crashed. So it's really important to fine-tune these for the lowest common denominator when you're looking to export your game.